morning. It is a pleasure being here today with Professor Allan Francis Tatham in order to dialogue about the relationships between Spain and the UK and also between the UK and the European Union. And we are going to focus in the area of education and university research, investigation research. So I wanted to start, if you don't mind, asking you what is the role of what can Spain do in order to promote inter-university cooperation with UK universities?
Well, thank you very much for the invitation today. I think if we look at the situation now post-Brexit, we're in a very febrile situation, a very difficult situation, because in fact, although universities in Spain and the United Kingdom have been preparing for this particular period of time, the impact of the pandemic and political situation related to Brexit have created a challenging atmosphere for universities in the UK and Spain to develop common plans for the future. For example, as you know, we have decided, the United Kingdom, through its government at the end of 2020 not to take part in Erasmus+, but on the other hand, what we wanted to do was to carry on with the Horizon Europe programme. Unfortunately, because of the political situation on Brexit, the European Commission hasn't yet granted Britain the status of an associated country to the Horizon Europe programme. So in that case, yes, it is very important to see how the Spanish universities and research institutes are looking forward to deal with this. On the one hand, we can see that the Spanish are particularly well placed because in the embassy in the United Kingdom they have their own Consejería de Educación, which is working not just with schools and colleges, which we'll come to later, but also with universities in order to make sure that Spanish teaching is maintained at the top universities in the UK despite the challenges. In fact, there is a bilateral agreement which has been in place for years with Britain and a number of other countries, which allows the exchange of language teaching assistants both to colleges and universities. So on one level, Spain has already prepared the groundwork for many years in this respect. As regards the other side, in respect of what the Spanish can do particularly, I think there the CRUE, the Federation or Grouping of Spanish Universities, the Rectors Conference, has been very active with its sister organisation, the Universities UK Association, in order to try and develop common schemes to address the problems of Brexit. So these are still at discussion. They're holding regular conferences. They had a conference in May 2021 with interested Spanish institutes and UK institutes. So they're trying to provide a groundwork for this. So generally speaking, the feeling is optimistic and positive, while at the same time Spain would like, and Spanish universities would like, the UK to join Horizon Europe. And that's been reflected in a joint letter, not just from Spanish universities, but universities from across the EU, imploring the European Commission to grant associate status to the UK.
As you have mentioned before, the UK is leaving also the Erasmus program, and I think that now they are establishing their Turin scheme. This new plan from the UK government does not contemplate the financial support for incoming students. Do you think that this makes an attractive for Spanish students, UK universities for Spanish students or other European students that want to study in a UK university?
Well, thanks for that question as well. It's one which British universities are having to deal with at this moment in time. because of the situation politically in the United Kingdom, we are, let's say, in a very difficult situation over which direction things are going to take. So in that void, what we've seen is UK and Spanish universities, as well as UK and other universities in the European Union, take the lead in trying to figure out a way of incorporating Turing into their exchange programs. So if I look at, first of all, Turing, and then I'll mention to you what's going on elsewhere in the United Kingdom, in other words, to give you a broader idea. Partly because you'd need to remember that, like here in Spain, education is a devolved matter, and therefore education is actually based on English, Scottish, Welsh and Northern Irish governments, rather than one UK policy fits everyone. So going to Turing first, yes, it's a program which is basically focused on the world. This reflects the present Conservative government's idea for a global Britain. And what we see with that is that these projects, which have the details of which have now been released, indicate there is quite broad diversity in countries which are going to be targeted, partly following a re-evaluation of British educational policy a few years ago, which targeted countries other than the European Union. What we see now is that, in fact, schools and colleges, interestingly enough, who have won funding from the Turing scheme, have actually put Spain as the top destination for their students. So schools and colleges, everybody under the age of 18, has actually put Spain in the top spot, which is quite a good reflection on the need for schools to carry on this mutual cooperation. As regards universities, Spain, I think, if I'm not mistaken, is in the top 5 or 6 countries, despite competition from the United States and Australia and so forth. So Spain, in fact, has held up well as a destination for British students. However, as you mentioned, there are downsides to the Turing scheme. One of those is that incoming Spanish students and other students are not going to be supported in the same way, either with fees or with maintenance support. In that respect, then, there is an opportunity for the Spanish universities to discuss with their British counterparts how it's possible to generate or found scholarships either with the public sector and or the private sector in order to maintain these very good, well-established relations that have blossomed over the years. And of course, the UK is one of the most popular destinations for Spanish students under the original Erasmus program. In fact, it'd be interesting for you to know that the Turing scheme has actually been run in its first year by the people who used to do Erasmus, namely the British Council and a Dutch company in a consortium. However, that has now changed. A new private company called Capita has taken over, and that might actually cause problems because Capita, according to various British media, has made quite a few mistakes in other large contracts that it's got from the British government before now. So there may be challenges ahead for that. So in fact, what I would say is that the support of Spanish universities and the diversification of financial support would be helpful, as would the negotiation of good bilateral agreements or the continuing of those bilateral agreements using alternative funding. So in respect of the fact that Turing has caused a change, in many respects, I think that challenge lies there in trying to make sure that Spanish students can actually still benefit from some form of interchange with the British university system, which is acknowledged by all UK universities as well in public statements from the Universities UK Association, as well as the Russell Group of the 24 elite research institutions in the UK. Moving on from just that particular point, because of course I did mention the devolved governments, there's quite a different array of solutions there. Northern Ireland is in a very, how should I put it, exceedingly good position because the Irish government, the government of the Republic of Ireland, has already pledged to pay for Northern Irish students to carry on being part of the Erasmus Plus programme. So for Northern Irish students, generally speaking, there's no change. Northern Irish students will be able to come to Spain, and Spanish students will be able to go to Northern Irish universities, of which there are two. So there's Queen's University and the Ulster University to be able to go to. In addition to that, Scotland, with its Saltier scholarships, which are there for master's level students, normally from developing countries, has actually extended this programme to include students from the European Union. So students wishing to study a master's programme in Scotland will be able to apply for a Saltier scholarship. By the way, Saltier is the name of the cross on the Scottish flag. And you will be able to apply for these scholarships in order to be able to support both your maintenance and the fees at a Scottish university. And lastly, the Welsh one, and that's where my mother's living at the moment, the Welsh government have exceeded everybody else, because the Welsh government has actually proposed £65 million to be able to maintain some form of Erasmus exchange. So in fact, Welsh universities and the voluntary sector will be able to bid for money to maintain the contacts that they've already had, and incoming EU students will therefore be funded by the Welsh government in order to ensure that personal exchange of experience. Now, this is all very positive in that respect, and the Spanish government through the Consejería de Educación in London actually works very closely with the Welsh government on many things, and I think that is an ideal opportunity as well for Spanish students to carry on these interchanges or exchanges between Welsh and Spanish universities. As regards the touring scheme in general, just to give you some idea of the matter, although there were an idea of having 30,000 students, it's actually now covering something more than 40,000 students are going abroad next academic year throughout the world. However, just one interesting point for you. One school in England has actually received more funding than Wales and Scotland combined. And this school in England has received over £1 million, whereas Scotland and Wales have received less than that together for projects that they've already put through. So there are some teething problems, and there may very well be further problems in the future as touring comes to fruition, and that is where very good contacts between the Spanish Ministry of Universities, the Spanish Education Ministry, and the UK and Spanish universities is going to be vital to be able to progress that network and support students in the future.
Focusing now more in a cultural level, how can Spain promote the evolution of Spanish as the main foreign language to study in British schools?
Well, I'm actually quite happy to tell you that Spanish has really superseded nearly every other modern language at the moment. In a couple of years' time, it will even supersede French. It's already superseded German in 2005. And indications within the next couple of years, Spanish will be the main foreign language for all students in the United Kingdom, whether you're living in Wales, England, Northern Ireland, even Scotland. And that's partly due for the fact in the way in which Spain has already invested time and its diplomatic skills, culturally speaking, through its Consejería de Educación and the building up of good relations, not only with the governments, but also using the network of Cervantes institutes. That, in fact, has been noticeable, that even those universities which have closed modern language departments have least affected the teaching of Spanish. So there's in fact support in the universities in the UK for keeping on with Spanish. And so what I can see is that at the age of 16 and the age of 18, which are it's 16 as GCSEs, General Certificate of Secondary Education, and 18 the advanced level, which we have before you go to university. The main foreign language now is Spanish, or as regards French and Spanish at A-level, will be Spanish within the next couple of years. French and German language studies have been going down, and the only language, as we say in English, to buck that trend has been Spanish. And that's attributed by a very clear strategic goal of the Spanish government and the Ministry of Education and so forth to maintain Spanish as a living language. And of course, as you know, one of the main reasons for that is the way in which there has been a cultural exchange between Britain and Spain for many years. Now, of course, for many students, their initial contact with Spain is on holiday here, either in summer holidays or long weekends. And Spain is an excellent destination for cultural exchanges, considering the rich history this country has over many thousands of years, our common interest with Roman civilization and so forth, but many other things which attract people coming from the UK. So it's not just people sitting on the beaches in the Costa Blanca which has attracted interest here. It's also because of the Spanish language, and the Spanish language, as you know, is one which dominates in Latin America, and so British students also see that it's an ideal entree into possible business dealings and working with companies in Central and South America.
Do you think that in the area of scientific research, UK has an active attitude towards cooperating with Spanish institutions or other European institutions?
Oh yes, researchers in the UK will tell you there's absolutely no way they can carry on their work in isolation. Research these days is not something that's carried on sincerely in a country-by-country basis, in a vacuum, sealed up. I mean, the thing we can see is during the pandemic, what we had was cooperation across borders between different research institutes who were discussing and debating their results and the way they wish to approach providing a vaccine for people throughout the world. And that is just one small example, although a very important example, of the cooperation between UK and EU universities in the field of many different fields, I should say, of research. In fact, I would say to you that respect between researchers is very profound. And the British and Spanish have been working for years within the previous Horizon programs and other research programs. And this new Horizon Europe program offers great potential for continuing that research and allowing researchers from Spain and other EU member states to go to the UK and vice versa. What I would suggest that needs to be addressed is the issue of the visa policy, because allowing somebody to go over just for 3 months without having to go through a full visa process is perhaps limiting the time you can spend. I remember being in Oxford 30 years ago when I had Italian colleagues over there researching, and they were spending a full year or 2 years researching on a particular area. So what I would say is that the UK, in order to carry on attracting the best and the most successful researchers, will need to negotiate in time a new visa policy or a different way in which researchers will be able to have freedom of movement. And one example to do is to use the German law. The German law is very, very much encouraging of making sure there's less paperwork and less documentation necessary for researchers to move from third countries to work in Germany for a period of time.
And do you think that investigation research is going to be affected now in this post-Brexit era by problems of fundings, by the bilateral relationship between Spain and the UK, and also between the funds of the European Union?
Right, what I see is in that there is a general feeling of positivity and need to continue previous research projects and work together in future research projects coming from all the major university associations in the European Union and in the UK. They've already made a statement, a joint statement on this after Britain left the European Union. What it needs actually is more political commitment to be able to allow those particular projects to flourish and to allow the UK to take up its place according to the 2020 Trade and Cooperation Agreement, for the UK finally to take its place in the Horizon Europe programme, and let's start working as soon as we can. In that sense, the UK scientists are quite well aware they have the support of their Spanish colleagues as well as other colleagues in the European Union, and they can see for them the added value of being able to work with their EU colleagues. Yes, at the moment in time, because of the restrictions on travel in some places, things are being done online. So in fact, even the pandemic hasn't inhibited the coming to terms with and the fruition of the various research projects. But at the same time, as you know, interpersonal contact, discussion groups informally in the lab or outside can actually further a piece of research much more successfully. So that collaboration, that need to be seen to be working together, is something which I think once the present political climate changes, it's likely to allow for a continuation of that research posture being deeper and more extensive, and of course Spanish universities and research institutes will play their role in that, as they have done for the last 20 years or more.
Thank you very much for being here today with us, sharing your opinion about which is the current situation in the field of education with the relationship between the UK and Spain, and also the European Union as a whole. So thank you, and we will see how this develops.
Thank you very much.